Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here. Well, is the crap about to hit the fan here in the United States of America? Or quite frankly, is it already hitting with everything that's going on? I have never ever seen an election this chaotic as this election. I mean, I've never seen the mainstream media call things as early as they did, especially Fox News with Arizona, not to mention all the corruption that we have seen President Trump laying out on his Twitter feed, not to mention the massive amounts of lawsuits. I mean, he's got lawsuits from Michigan to Pennsylvania to Arizona to Nevada to keep going. And of course, the recounts in multiple states. So much is going on. And the United States of America, we just here are on pins and needles. And in today's report, I'm going to dive into a couple important factors. One of those being William Barr calling a last-minute meeting with the president of the United States in regards to Pennsylvania and some stuff that's going on there. And I'm going to show you the actual lawsuit that President Trump is filing in Michigan, because you have to see this stuff for yourself to see what the claims are and what's going on behind the scenes, if you will. But before I do, I want to give a quick shout out to my partner at healthwithlisa.com. Look, if you guys have not tried this stuff, I put this in my coffee every single morning, and it really has done radical things, as you can see, for my hair here, and of course my skin and nails, but check it out. Get it at healthwithlisa.com, and right now you can get up to 51% off. All right, let's move on to what's going on with William Barr. Take a look at this article, and I've already talked about this, but as a refresher, if you haven't seen it, thewallstreetjournal.com, Attorney General William Barr tells prosecutors they can pursue election probes. This is obviously good news for President Trump, good news for us. They're pursuing those probes. They're going after it and to really see what's going on. But as always, I'm very leery of Barr because he puts these investigations through, but you never hear an end result, right? Nothing ever comes of it. So that's my fear here. But moving on a little bit, here is William Barr, and this is on bostonglobe.com, clears the Justice Department to investigate alleged voter irregularities. DOJ official quits as a result of him calling the investigation. And I already talked about this on Restricted Republic, and I think YouTube too. One of his main guys there, or the main guy there, said, "I quit." But this is a guy who's a radical leftist or got very democratic leftist views who quit, obviously because because he's a leftist and he doesn't want to investigate things. That's just my personal opinion there. But the guy quit. But nonetheless, the investigations are still happening. All right. So let's move on to this meeting that Barr had with President Trump. Right here we are on abcnews.com. Barr briefed Trump on investigation into discarded Pennsylvania ballots. Now, they're actually referencing this article on NBC. U.S. Attorney in Battleground, Pennsylvania, investigates a small number of ballots found in a trash can. Now, 9 ballots were actually found in the trash can that prompted FBI to do this investigation. And this is what William Barr is bringing to President Trump's attention, right? But as you can see here, I believe 7 of those ballots were for Trump, and 2 of those ballots, as far as I understand it, were for Biden. But either way, if this is direct evidence of election tampering, where you're throwing away actual ballots in a garbage can. So this can go either way for us, right? Either William Barr is taking the smallest amount of ballots, the smallest election corruption, I guess, that he could find, making a big deal about it, bringing it to the president, and this is the one that they're going to sit on and say, obviously, it's not enough evidence to make any changes. It's just a couple of ballots. Or this could be the start of, well, here's just a small piece, but we've got more stuff that's going to be investigated that we're going to look into. Now, I'm not quite sure which way it's going to go, right? William Barr could say, oh, that's it, not enough, we're done. Election, we're done. It's all called. Or this could spark more. And I don't have much confidence in William Barr. However, okay, here's the good news about it. This is on CNN.com. Barr says, without citing any evidence that an election done predominantly by mail would not be secure. Now, this was back in June 25th, 2020. This is an older statement. But the reason I bring it up is I'm hopeful that Barr doesn't do his investigations surrounding on his beliefs for President Trump or his beliefs for Joe Biden. It shouldn't be based on a political issue. It should be based on the integrity of our election. And if William Barr really believes what he said back in June 25th, that mail-in ballots is not secure, right? Then I'm praying that he's more driven by his motivation to go along with that statement. Like, as far as if it's not secure and he doesn't believe it's secure, then now is the time for him to back up what he's been saying back in June, right? So I'm hoping that this is his chance to either say, hey, we have a great election and mail-in ballots are working, or B, we don't, and there is some fraud that needs to be exposed, right? This is his chance to shine. Will he or will he not? I don't know. I guess there's a lot to be said on that. But either way, what also gives me hope is that those on the left, right, are calling for his resignation. And this is on thenation.com. This would be a very good time to impeach William Barr. Now, I don't want to impeach William Barr. However, if the left is calling for that gives me hope that maybe he's going to do what he actually set out to do and prove some stuff. But only time will tell. Moving on a little bit, obviously, I wanted to show you a little bit more updates on what's going on. Here we have foxnews.com. Tucker Carlson, yes, dead people voted in this election and Democrats helped make that happen. Many Trump voters believe this election was unfair and they are right. And he goes into this report to detail, I believe, 25 dead people that have counted. Here's another article, and this is on thefederalist.com. Lawsuit claims 40,000 plus fraudulent ballots pumped through Detroit for Joe Biden. Great article there. And here we have zerohedge.com. This is the latest claim. Giuliani says 650,000 votes were counted unlawfully in Philadelphia and Pittsburgh. So we've got stuff happening all across the country. But what I really want to hone in on today is this, the Michigan lawsuit, because a lot of you have been asking, well, what's really in these lawsuits? Is there any validity to it? Can President Trump actually make a claim? Is there any strength to these, or are they just all going to fall under the water? And that's really what I think we need to hone in on. But here it is. And keep in mind, there's a lot of lawsuits, but this is the one that I have so far, right? Michigan lawsuit. In the United States District Court for the Western District of Michigan, you can see Donald Trump there and some other names who versus all of these names here, the Michigan Board of State Canvass, Wayne County, Michigan. And of course, we have Wayne County there and Jocelyn Benson and all of that. So you could just kind of read through who the defendants are there. But the summary of this, basically, President Trump says there's some questionable things happening with regard to the election. We need to investigate that. So I'm really going to summarize this, but I'm going to scroll down here to the pages. And I've read this whole thing. Very easy read, by the way, if you guys want to check that out. But we're going to scroll on over to page 9. The first couple of pages get into the basics and talks about how if you do some kind of fraud with the election, that could cause, I believe he says, up to 2 years in prison. And that's considered a federal charge for something like that. But scrolling to page 9, here we are. And I want to focus on 24. And here's the accusations. Secretary Benson and Wayne County violated these provisions of Michigan law and violated the constitutional rights of Michigan citizens and voters when they did not conduct this election in conformity with their own law and the law of the U.S. Constitution. More than 100, that's an awful lot, right? Credentialed election challengers provided sworn affidavits. These affidavits stated, among other matters, that these credentials challengers were denied a meaningful opportunity to review election officials in Wayne County, handling ballots, processing absentee voter ballots, validating legitimacy of absent voter ballots, and the general conduct of the election and the ballot counting. Now it goes on and says Michigan voters were denied a fair, honest, transparent election because, among other things, the election challengers were denied opportunities to meaningfully observe the process and counting ballots. So you can see that in the bold print. And then he goes on to list a couple examples of what happened. And I'm really going to skim through this, but you can see these names here that he's referencing means these are the affidavits that he has and he's provided to the court there. So 27, many individuals individuals designated as challengers to observe the conduct of the election were denied opportunity to observe the conduct of the election. For example, Republican Party or Republican candidates were denied access to this TFC Center ballot counting locations in Detroit, while Democrats were allowed access. And then he goes on to talk about how an unlimited number of media were also allowed inside, regardless of COVID restrictions, while Republican challengers were excluded, right? Many challengers state that Republicans who had been admitted to the center but who left were also not allowed to return. Okay, so moving on down a little bit, and he gives more testimonies here. Challengers testified that election officials strictly and exactingly enforced a 6-foot rule for Republican challengers, but no rule for Democrats. 31 here. Many challengers testified that their ability to view the handling process and counting ballots was physically and intentionally blocked by the election officials, all illegal, by the way. 32 says at least 3 challengers said they were physically pushed away from the counting tables by election officials to distance that was too far to observe. So you're too far, you can't observe, and so they push them away. Here we have 34 here. Many challengers witnessed election officials covering the windows. 35, they also testified that they were intimidated, threatened, and harassed by these officials during the ballot processing and county process. These are all massive things. And it goes on to list a couple more and a couple specific circumstances. All right. So scrolling down a little bit more, it gets into illegal and ineligible ballots that were counted. And it goes on to say here on number 40, many challengers testified that their challenges to ballots were ignored and disregarded. He lists those people. As an example, he says the challenges being disregarded and ignored. Challenger Alexandria Seeley stated that at least 10 challenges she made were not recorded. They didn't record the challenges that she made. Teresa Bomer observed that ballots with votes for Trump were separated from other ballots. She also stated that I witnessed election workers open ballots with Donald Trump votes and responded by rolling their eyes and showing it to other poll workers. I believe some of these ballots may not have been properly counted. It goes on that others say that 35 ballots for whom the votes recorded did not exist in the poll book, but his challenge was ignored and disregarded. These are blatant disregards. And here's another person who says that he attempted to challenge the counting of ballots. An election person told him, we're not talking to you. You can't challenge this. And then here's another one here. An election worker told her that they are no longer accepting the challenges because rules no longer applied. Wait. This is so far massive corruption, but you can see this is just one section here. Here we have unlawful duplicated ballots, right? And 42 says, if a ballot was rejected by a ballot tabulator machine and can't be read by the machine, the ballot must be duplicated onto a new ballot, right? That's what they're supposed to do. If the rejection is due to a false read, the ballot has to be duplicated by 2 election inspectors who have expressed a preference for different political parties. That's the law. What actually happened here? Wayne County prevented many challengers from observing the ballot duplicate process, and they go on. Challenger Miller said he was not allowed to observe the election workers duplicating a ballot because the duplicating ballot process was like personal voting, according to what they said, which it's not. You just saw the law. Challenger Mary Schinkel stated she was told by an election worker that she was not allowed to observe a ballot duplicate because if they made a mistake, then they would be all over it, right? Many challengers also testified that ballot duplicate was performed only by Democrat election workers and not by bipartisan teams. As the law says there in Michigan, it has to be seen by 2 political parties, and that was not the case. That allows so much room for so much crap to happen. Now, also ineligible ballots were counted, and they've got some examples here. And I'm really skimming through this because I don't want to take you on forever, but here we have challengers on number 45 there. Challengers reported that batches of ballots were repeatedly run through the voting tabular machines. Here's an example. Challenger Patrice stated that she observed a stack of about 50 ballots that were being fed multiple times into a ballot scanning machine. Challenger Bomer said that I observed a station where election workers were working on scanned ballots that had issues that needed to be manually corrected. I believe some of those workers were changing votes that had been cast for Donald Trump and other Republicans. Then she further stated that she witnessed some group of ballots being rescanned into the counting machine at least 5 times. Whoa, wait, what? I hope if these recounts are done, it gets rid of some of these things that they're talking about here. If this happened and if this pans out in court, right? Then we have 46, but there's like 100. President Trump says he has 100 different people that are making claims here. And this is just in that county, and I believe it's 1 or 2 counties, but many challengers stated that the ballot number on the ballot box did not match the number on the ballot envelope. When they raised the challenge, those challenges were disregarded and ignored by election officials and not even recorded. And those ballots were processed and counted. Look, this thing continues to go on, and it gives more examples on 47, 48 here, and 49. If you want to read these, you can read through all of these above. But there's more. We have absentee ballots were predated, and it talks about examples of what they witnessed and solved. Ballots were deposed in remote, unattended drop boxes without the opportunity to observe or challenge the ballots, right? So they weren't even allowed to look at them. These are some of the other things referenced. And then from about, I think this page on, it kind of really or here's some more here, but after that, it kind of gets into the voting system and some of the legal laws and legal jargon there. But that gives you an idea of what's going on. And I think this is why when there was a poll done by, I'll check it out here on Breitbart.com. This is a poll that less than half of Americans believe Joe Biden won the election. Why would less than half of us believe that he won? Well, it's not because of who we stand for, and it's not because we're Republicans or because we're Democrats or whatever label we have. It's because of everything that we're seeing that's going on all around us. But either way, I think there's something that President Trump has with that county. You've got over 100 people. If that's not a case, then there's no hope for the rest of us if we go to court for something. I mean, 100 separate people making claims that are similar and around the same thing and having to do with stuff. I think we've got some pretty solid stuff here. So if I were to go to court and you've got 100 people against, what's going on, hey, that's a pretty solid claim as far as I'm convinced. But I'm not in court. I'm not the one deciding. I'm not a judge. I'm not anything other than an opinioned writer and journalist here. But I mean, I think there's a lot that needs to be discussed. So will William Barr shine and do what he's supposed to do? Or will he do what he always does and, have an investigation kicked underway and then nothing happens as a result? Well, I'd love to get your thoughts, comments, and concerns. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. YouTube has been on a massive rampage, unsubscribing people from here. And make sure you have that little bell clicked, because if that bell isn't clicked, you will not be notified. And don't forget to get on over to restrictedrepublic.com. We've got so much amazing information on there. We don't have time to cover everything here on YouTube, and all the little holes that you're missing are over on Restricted Republic. And I'm not the only writer there. Justice Knight is there as well. Love all of you. Thanks again for tuning in. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.